What? You blink, your eyelashes fluttering. So I had to restart the game last time. I tried recording, and of course the game closed, and then sorry, I died. Steam wouldn't let me open the game again because it's all like, oh, this file needs to be updated. This game needs to be updated. It's like, okay, and I'm like, okay, let's update it, and then it's like, oh, missing executable, and I'm like, okay, let's try it again, and there's like corrupt content files. So I'm like, oh fuck, now I have to restart my computer and stop recording. So yeah. So we have to restart like 3 times, I think, for that happy ending. About 3 times to play it again? Oh, about 3 times. About 3 times. It says about 3 times, but that doesn't mean it's true. Isn't safe. Speeding. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. It's like course, everybody, she's back alive. Oh my, it has been such a long time. It's a long while since I've had a visitor. She says softly, is that a good thing? It must be lonely sitting in the dark for so long with nothing but books for company. How can she even read these books in the gloom? But this reality seems to operate differently from the one you came from. It's probably better not to ask these things. Otherwise, the whole world might fall apart. My name is Lycoris. May I inquire as to your title? Title, why she wants to know your name? We're gonna go for the different name this time. Let's go with... Let's go with... Emmeline. Achievement unlocked if I burn. Oof. Oof. Emmeline, That is a rather pretty name. I only hope you do not get burnt. Of course nods her head. You can see it drifting slightly in the gloom. Well, Emmeline, do you know where you are? No. I've already seen all this before. Yes. Let's read the story. Yay! Hooray! Once on a windswept night. Hooray! The cutscene. Opening entrance. What? Now. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago. No. Yeah, we've seen all this before. Can I skip? Let's skim. We're going to examine the tree. And now we're going to say, you should be more careful, Madeline. It's good. It's a good. Now wait. Oh wait. Stay with Madeline. Let's start the story again. We're gonna examine that fucking tree again. Check out its nice tree little titties. What? I didn't say nothing. You should be more careful. It's good. It's a good. And then we're gonna stay with daffodil, and then we're gonna say, don't worry, we're gonna say, don't worry, I won't do anything, and then we're gonna tell her the truth, we're gonna tell her the truth. We're going to return to the beginning of the tale. Going to skim. We're going to examine the tree. Okay, now after this next choice, just say it's good. Now we're going to have to record. Oh, return. Okay. Okay. Stay with both of them. The choice doesn't matter. Is there anything unusual about that tree?
It depends on what you mean by unusual. I suppose it isn't unusual for there to be a tree growing in a church at all.
Growing isn't really the right word, more like dying.
I suppose you're right. That tree hasn't borne any fruit for as long as I can remember, and I have lived in this church since I was a baby.
You were given to the convent at your birth?
Yes, I do not know if my parents wanted me to become a nun or not, but, I never had the opportunity to ask them.
You wouldn't have, being a baby, but didn't your parents tell one of the nuns who took you in? Len smiled, a touch of remorse to her expression, and shook her head.
That is quite a complex tale, and neither, I fear, a very interesting one.
The traveler nodded. They knew when it was impolite to keep prying. Madeline was not the kind of person to directly tell another to stop an unwanted line of questioning, but she would drop hints. It's not very interesting was the biggest hint there was.
Now that you mention it, I think the mere existence of this tree is unusual, but I've never questioned it. It has always been here, and the church would feel incomplete without it.
Did any of the other nuns tell you about it?
Not really. They just said it was old and precious and needed to be cared for, like any visitor to the church, I suppose.
The game fucking froze. But this one is more permanent.
That's right, but it has never been a bother. We only need to water it occasionally.
I'm surprised it hasn't rotted away yet.
Perhaps it's stubborn.
It's annoying. I've stubbed my toe on it before.
fucking game fucking froze like a fucking turd that it is.
You'd think it'd be all soggy and eaten up by termites, but it hurt like a bitch.
Wow! Watch your language, this is the house of God. Exactly! I think my recording software is starting to freeze again.
Daffodil, don't say such words in a church.
What, bitch?
That's right. Don't be so uncouth, or I'll have to wash your mouth out with soap.
But it did hurt like a bitch. But it did hurt like a bitch. It was in agony.
All right, Missy, that's enough from you.
Daffodil whimpered, tears beating in the corners of her eyes as Madeline roughly ruffled the top of her head. The travelers smiled, endeared by their closeness, but questions still remained. That was cute.
It hurt like a bitch.
I don't know. I don't know. Oh, it froze. There we go. Everything's fine now. Everything's fine now. You don't know. You can't tell her that. You don't know who you are either, but you reach across the table. Your knees upset. Your knee upsets the tabletop, jostling like horse's cup of peppermint tea. The mold-flecked surface, did it always look so blue and green? Quivers, catching in the dim lights. Just motes circle you, filling your nose with the thick, insurmountable smell of death. But none of that stops you. 'Cause I'm a necrophiliac. I'm just kidding. What? You still take her hand. Aw. I'm alive? She blinks at you. She looks like a lost child left all alone in the library, waiting for her parents to come back. But they never will. She has been waiting here, alone, for hundreds upon hundreds of years, waiting with nothing more than these books for company and a name to cling to, like Horace. Now she doesn't even have that. Her name has been stolen. You need to find her real name. You need to give it back to her. Oh yeah, give it to her. I'm gonna give it to her, alright? You can tell, though you don't know how, that this is your duty. Oh yeah, my duty is to give it to her. Ugh! Giggity giggity. Giggity goo. This is what you were called here for. You have to help her. Well, I mean, I don't have to, but... But this whole time, I wasn't like Horace. I lied to you. Why do you want to stay with me? You swallow, your throat feels dry. Because I care about you. Because it's the right thing to do. Right thing to do. The choice doesn't really matter. Because I care about you. You care about me? You nod your head. You know you care. It is an irrefutable fact that you care, though you do not know why. But maybe, if you keep reading, you will find out. No, you are sure that you will.
Emmeline.
Her small hand is soft and warm, your fingers laced together. How many times have you held this hand? How many times has this hand held yours? It feels right somehow. The setting is all wrong. So wrong! And you don't know who you are, and she doesn't know who she is. But this sensation of your fingers intertwined feels right. The sensation is all you need. I'm scared, but... She breathes in. I'm sure if you are with me, I can face up to anything. She squeezes your fingers about yours. Her fingers about yours, whatever. Then let us continue. Let us see what this other like Horace has to say. You have no choice. The story is still far from over. It won't be satisfied until it reaches an ending. You won't be satisfied either, will you, Emmeline? It's funny. I never thought you were the curious sort. It must be because of her. Just Don't let go of my hand. She doesn't need to ask you. That is a mistake you won't make again. Cute. Very cute. Like Chorus's story. Oh boy. Everything over good over here? Okay, good. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, there was a girl who dreamt of being a poet. She did not want wealth, and neither did she want acclaim. She just wanted to share her thoughts and feelings with others. She wanted to be understood.
I hate being misunderstood. Nobody understands me.
Sorry. Then, why then did she not attempt to vocalize her feelings? If she wanted understanding, it would seem more sensible to widen her social circle, not spill the depths of her heart across a cold, unfeeling sheet of paper. But people are not always logical, poets doubly so. If she could have expressed herself clearly with her voice rather than her words, she would not have been a poet. It was precisely because she was awkward that she hid herself away inside her dusty library and expressed herself soundlessly. For many years she did not go outside. No sunlight touched her skin until her flesh lost its rosy pigmentation and began to turn gray. That is disgusting. I would go see a doctor about that. But I understand the feeling. I understand the sentiment because I have very pale skin because I don't leave my house. Rarely do I leave my house. I'm stretching. Let's pop my back. Come on. Oh. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but Wait. I can do it. Okay. Anyways, that was my neck. The only noise she had heard was the scratching of her quill against the parchment. The parchment. That was all she needed. That was what she told herself she needed. Why then were all her stories so deeply, profoundly depressing? Because she's a depressed person. Everything good? She was not happy, but she told herself it was impossible to be happy as a poet and tried to set her feelings to one side. She purged them onto the paper, attempting to cleanse her soul. She was convinced she could remain living like this, in suspended animation, neither happy nor unhappy, not dead but not quite alive, and perhaps she truly could have. She would have, did she not fall in love. Aw, you fell in love with someone. You fell in love with someone, that's so cute. One day, a concerned aunt convinced the poet to leave her study and walk about the village. Her aunt told the girl cool air would bring some color to her cheeks, as she had been looking awfully peaky as of late. Pecky as of late? I don't fucking know. The poet protested, saying she would rather write, but her aunt was firm. Oh yeah, her aunt said the poet had written so very much already, she must have been running out of things to say, and in any event, breaking out of her self-imposed eggshell would be good for her. Meeting new people and having new experiences would only make the tales she span more enjoyable. Reluctantly, the poet acquiesced. Her aunt was a pushy woman, and she did not have much of a choice. So the aunt took the poet by the hand and dragged her out into the sunshine. And she hissed, like, sun. I imagine that's what she would make. That's what she would make. The poet had to shield her eyes with her hand like a lich, and spent the whole walk yearning to return to her study. The world was far too bright for a strange, pale, melancholic creature like her. There were traders trying to sell her their wares, and happy couples coupled up together beneath the sun. There are children shrieking, playing games, and chickens pecking at seed on the street. The streets were narrow and cramped, much too crowded, and the girl was jostled back and forth. Her shoulders were bumped, her elbows knocked, and she feared her skin would bruise. Jeez. Oh, it was horrible. The outside world was chaotic and lively and exciting, and that made it unspeakably horrible. I know, right? The poet was not bright and bold. You're stupid. And bold, and it seemed likely her very being would fade away, dissolving into dust, exposed for the fake that she really and truly was. A fake human who wrote about false emotions she had never felt, half-formed and incomplete, fated to vanish without a trace. The mere act of existing amongst these strangers with their bright eyes and smiling faces was almost unbearable. The girl really did think she was going to die until she met her. She was nothing special, really, a street performer with ribbons in her hair and a smile on her face. Oh boy, a street performer. People tossed silver and bronze coins into the cap on the floor before her. Nobody would give gold to a street urchin like this. And she would dance for them obligingly, a flesh and blood music box given life. Once in a while, the pedestrians would pause to watch her and would request dances. The spoilt princess, the shy bride, the dying swan, the dying swan. One of these things is not like the other. The girl fulfilled each request sweetly, with grace and poise. She threw her very being, her soul, into these roles with such abandon the poet could only watch, her eyes wide. When she was the princess, the girl was regal, with a noble carriage, her head held high. When she was the bride, she was shy and demure, her eyelashes downturned as though anxious to gaze upon the visage of her husband. When she was the swan, her face twisted into an expression of deep melancholia, and her fluttering arms may as well have been two white feathery wings. And she died. The poet was in awe. How could one girl take on so many roles, yet finish each performance with that self-same smile and a neat little curtsy? Because she is an actor. If you were into theater, you would know, you stupid, uncultured swine. You call yourself a poet and yet you're so uncultured. How dare you? There was barely enough of the poet to constitute one complete character, it alone three, but it seemed the dancer could swap between personas at her will. Was that because she was so full of life? The poet did not know. All she knew was she could not tear her eyes away from the girl. The crowds continued to shout and jostle, and one elderly woman carrying a sack filled with potatoes knocked into the poet, but there she remained, rooted to the spot as though by magic. A strange feeling had begun to blossom inside her chest, one that she could not quite place. Puberty! Envy, perhaps? But this emotion did not have the bite of envy. It was not bitter, but neither was it sweet, and though it hurt keenly, the poet was happier for having experienced it. It could only have been love. Okay, whatever you say. At some point, the dancer noticed that the poet was watching her, spellbound, and she smiled. She walked towards the poet, her feet falling against the ground in a series of feather-light taps soft enough to be inaudible, and peered at her curiously.
"Would you like me to dance for you?" she asked.
The poet was quite overwhelmed by all this and did not know what to do. She did not understand the feelings that were growing inside her heart, and being in such close proximity to the girl who had sparked them was dangerous. It must have been dangerous. Dangerous! I don't know the rest of the words to the song because I haven't listened to it ever, even though I like Michael Jackson's music. I don't like Michael Jackson, but I like his music. Her heart was a powder keg, and this girl's smile was brighter than the flames that flickered in her fireplace. If she allowed it, her poor heart would explode like that.
I'm sorry, but
The poet stuttered. The dancer repeated mischievously. The poet was so enamored, she very nearly bit off the tip of her own tongue. Ew. Yeah. Have you guys ever bit your tongue super hard? I mean, like, not to the point where you bite off the tip of your own tongue, but, like, one time I was running up the stairs in my old house when I was really little, and, like, I fell and landed on my jaw, and my tongue was in the way of my teeth, so I bit down on my tongue, and I'm like, ah! I looked like I had, like, a little snake on my tongue, because it had, like, 2 little bumps that looked like eyes. So, like, also, no, speaking of snakes, but I'll finish the story. My mom, so I basically just got a bunch of popsicles for a while to, like, suck on to help my tongue heal. Okay, so speaking of a snake, I don't know if anyone has ever, like, cut their tongue, like, in the middle. But, I had a loose tooth once, and I was wiggling it around, and, like, the root of the tooth was actually sharp, and it cut. I mean, it's not super bad or anything, but there's a cut in my tongue from my, loose tooth while I was messing around with my mouth. I mean, it's not super deep or anything, it's barely noticeable, but if I, like, stick my tongue out, and, you know, press on it, you can see the little split open part of it, but it's not like super like gory or anything. It's just like it healed. It's not like gross or anything. But yeah, it's interesting. Anyways, tongues are weird. You guys ever realize how weird tongues are? Anyways, it had been such a long time since she had spoken to another human being, and it was all too much for her.
I am afraid I do not have any money,
she said the poet apologetically. But the dancer merely rolled her eyes and said, her tone dismissive, "You don't need to give me money, silly. I'm offering." This was not enough to placate the poet, however, for she demurred. I don't fucking know.
But it would be rude, surely. I do not expect you to dance for my sake for free.
The dancer pouted.
You were looking at me so reverently, though, like I was some kind of goddess.
I think that's payment enough.
I'm sorry, but...
For the first time in her life, the poet was close, dangerously close, to getting what she wanted. A lap dance! Woo! Get some! Get some! If you don't want some, give it to me. I'll fucking take it. I don't care. But this thought was terrifying. Chance was terrifying. The feelings blossoming inside her chest were terrifying. So she left. She had no other choice. That was what she told herself, but her heart was pounding. The rest of the day, the poet wondered. She did not know why she loved the dancer so. They had hardly spoken, and the poet was a reticent person by nature. She was not the sort to fall for perfect strangers. Indeed, she had always scoffed at fairy tales, with their neat happily ever after endings, because these princes and princesses oft married without knowing the first thing about one another. That was not love. That was obsession. Maybe the poet did not love the dancer then. Maybe it was obsession. Sick and twisted and unhealthy. No, it's more like lust. I think you're getting confused with obsession and lust. I don't think it was an obsession. I don't think fairy tales ended with like obsession. I don't think it's obsessive. I think it's lust. There's a huge difference. It was because throughout the day, the dancer was the only one who had paid the poet any attention. What about her aunt? What about her aunt that took her out? She was the only one who seemed to care. But that was nothing more than foolishness. If the dancer cared, that was because she wanted the poet to give her money. We've got to have money. My dog's scratching at my door. Go away, Clover! I'm not paying attention to you. I'm playing a game. That was a logical conclusion, one that general dislike and mistrust of other humans had taught the poet, and yet...
I am afraid I do not have any money. Don't need to give me money, silly. I'm offering.
Free lap dance, come on, dude. From that day on, whenever the poet tried to compose any poetry, her thoughts would invariably return to the dancer. Now love, or if it was not love, obsession. Lust can do strange things to people. Though the poet was a shy, retiring sort, the hitherto would never have ventured into the outside world of her own volition. She was now driven. It was almost as though she had been cursed. She had to see the dancer again, otherwise she feared she would die. You must die. The following week, the poet found herself wandering the streets. She walked awkwardly with the gait of one unused to the outside world. Her hands were held at her front, and she glanced about, as though expecting to be set upon by any moment. She made her way to the square where she had first seen the dancer, but to her immense disappointment, the dancer was not there. Perhaps that was to be expected. Street performers did not have fixed schedules, and often they did not have fixed addresses. The girl may not even have been a permanent resident of the village. What if she had already left and was now sharing her skills with the villagers of Charlotte or Vienno-Siri? I don't fucking care. That was only to be expected, really, but this thought hurt rather more than it should have. The poet turned, defeated, ready to make her way back home when... "Oh my!" a familiar voice trilled. "Were you waiting for me?" The poet could only stare in shock. As well she might. You would have done the same. You would have done much. I'm dying. You would have done much the same if standing before you was the very object of your affections. The dancer, with her striking makeup and long silken hair. "You know," said the dancer, "I've been doing street performances for years, but I've never had a fan before." "A fan?" asked the poet, blinking at her shyly. "That's right. You are a fan, aren't you?" I don't know what you mean." "Of course you don't. This is just a coincidence. We just so happened to run into one another." Said the dancer, nodding her pretty little head. "So, my number one not fan, would you care to watch me a while?" The poet looked at her anxiously. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. You want me to?" "Of course, dancing is rather depressing when there is nobody around to appreciate your art. But the streets are filled with people," and the poet's voice tailed off. I don't think that's supposed to be right. She shied away. "In any case, you're so pretty, everybody will want to watch you." "They watch, but that doesn't mean they see. They are not watching the dance, but my legs or my hips or my chest." The dancer shook her head. "But you're different. I could tell that from the start." "Did you want me to watch your legs, your hips, or your chest? 'Cause I can do that." I don't think so, but if you want me to, the poet flushed. "I suppose I can watch you, just for a while." "Oh, thank you! Thank you so much!" The dancer beamed. Her whole face was glowing. Suddenly, without warning, the dancer pulled the poet into a hug. The embrace was unexpected, and the poet tensed when she felt the lithe, supple arms of the dancer wind about her waist. The dancer smelt of peppermint, soft and sweet. As for the poet, what did she smell of? Dust motes, most likely, in old parchment. Ink, too. The tips of her fingers were still blackened from a feverish night of writing, and there were bags beneath her eyes. She could not return the dancer's embrace, lest she smear her dress with smuts of ink, but that did not mean she did not want to. She had never wanted anything more acutely in her whole life. "So, my number one not fan," said the dancer coyly, once she had been drawn away from the poet, "do you have a dance request for me now?" And to her surprise, the poet did. the erstwhile lover. The dancer danced so very sweetly, the poet could almost bring herself to believe she was really dancing for her. When the poet returned to her study, she pressed the palms of her hands against her cheeks covertly, warming them with the strength of her own ardor. Oh my god, I've been recording for like 36 minutes. Holy fuck. It was embarrassing to care so deeply after a long, weary life of not caring at all. But the poet embraced it, even though it hurt. Even though she knew, undoubtedly, the dancer did not return her affections. She could not. Why would anybody love a reclusive person like her? But that did not stop the poet from meeting this dancer over and over again. During the months, the two struck up a kind of friendship. The poet would go and watch the dancer, and the dancer would always fulfill the poet's requests, with a small smile on her face. She was always, without fail, the erstwhile lover. "Is there any reason why you like this dance so much?" the dancer once had cause to ask, with one of her mischievous smiles. The two were sitting together in the local tavern, drinking. Perhaps the poet had had too much to drink already. She had always been bad at holding her liquor, and her cheeks were flushed. They flushed even deeper upon hearing the dancer's question. The poet looked at the tabletop, trembling like a lily. She could hardly tell the dancer she enjoyed the dance because it allowed her to imagine, if only a few moments, the love and adoration resplendent upon the dancer's face was meant for her and her alone. Being an artist herself, the poet understood the dancer's true motivations. The love that shone upon her face during the dance was not meant for her. It was for the art of dance itself. I just think it looks beautiful, that's all," said the poet. But the dancer was not placated by this obvious dodge. "Oh, is that all?" she said, nudging the poet in the ribs. "Ooh, my ribs!" "It's the truth!" the poet squeaked. The dancer peered at her, smiling that mischievous smile the poet had come to know even better than her own. Of course, the poet knew the dancer's smile more intimately than hers. She never smiled herself, after all, and even if she did, she was not the sort of person who cared to look at her reflection in the mirror. She was far too pale and sickly. "If that is so, then why is your face red?" asked the dancer. The poet stuttered helplessly. "I must have had too much apple cider. Cider! Fuck! Apple cider?" The dancer raised an eyebrow. "How can you even get drunk on that? It's a woman's drink." "We're both women," the poet countered weakly. The dancer, however, paid the traveler's feeble protest no heed. She laughed, shaking her head. "You're kind of adorable, you know?" I am? "Yes, you get flustered so easily." The dancer giggled ominously. "It makes me want to tease you." "Please don't!" The woe-begone poet replied, her head bowed. No? But the poet was shifting a little in her seat, anxious and expectant. When the dancer said she wanted to do something, she was the kind of person who did it, even if that something involved the unfair and wholly unnecessary teasing of her sensitive friend. "You don't sound very convinced," the dancer pressed. "Well, it is, if it's you." The poet flushed, abashed by her own honesty. "Maybe I don't mind being teased. Just a little." "Now that's what I like to hear. This is why we're such good friends, you and me." "Because you like bullying and I'm easy to bully?" Granted, the poet was not well versed in human relations, but it did not seem like the most stable foundation to build a friendship on. But there was more. Of course there was more. The dancer made a show of thinking, one finger tapping against her lower lip. Her fingernails, the poet noticed, were a pale, peachy pink, neatly filed and cut into perfect crescent moons. For some reason, those perfect fingernails were depressing. "And you're incredibly cute!" the dancer suddenly exclaimed. "What?" the poet started. I like how they had this like dark and depressing music in the background and this cute shit is going on. It was fortunate she was not drinking. If she had been, the fine spray of apple cider would have gone everywhere. Now that would have endeared her to the dancer, she did not think. Please don't tease me, the poet begged. Who says I'm teasing you? It's just so unlikely. I'm not cute. Are too, the dancer insisted stubbornly. The poet looked at her dubiously. You say cider is a woman's drink, but I think you're drunk too, she said. Nonsense! But you said I was cute. You are cute, and I'll prove it. How? Like this? Like this! Quicker than lightning, the dancer bridged the gap between them and pressed her lips against the poet's cheek. Ah! The poet squeaked. Predictably, she flustered. Her eyes were as white as gold pieces. With a trembling hand, she brought her fingertips to her right cheek and let them rest there. She was so awkward, uncoordinated, she very nearly managed to knock her tankard of apple cider over in the process. But could you really blame her? The dancer, her dearest friend and the object of her affections, had just kissed her. What did it mean? The poet did not know. She was happy at this display of affection, of course, but at the same time she was horribly anxious. What of their relationship now? What if it changed? Before she met the dancer, the poet had been unbearably lonely. She had not even realized the full extent of her own loneliness because she had been lonely all her life. The loneliness had become a dull background hum, like falling rain, her constant companion. Now that the poet knew what it was like not to be lonely, she did not know if her heart could handle the deep, unchecked loneliness of her past. Is this gonna be over anytime soon? Because I have other things to do. Her heart was a frail, fragile organ, and it tensed in pain when she was parted from the dancer. Some nights she would clutch her chest, her eyes woven shut from pain, and whimper. Loving somebody was one of the most wonderful feelings in the world, but not being loved in return was agony. Being toyed with was worse. I can't talk anymore. It felt like her heart was being lacerated by glass, and the mere act of breathing hurt. Sometimes the poet wished she had never met the dancer. God, 40 fucking minutes. Then she would never have learned what it was to love, and subsequently she would never have learned what it was like to suffer. But she knew that was folly. Even if she had a chance to go back in time, she would not have done anything differently. She would have met the dancer again, over and over, across thousands of different lifetimes. Oh my god. I'm so tired of reading this. If only she could have told the dancer that, but her lips remained sealed shut. All she could do was pine and pour the depths of her heart into her poems. The dancer herself seemed curious in the poet's works and asked her numerous questions about her profession. What is it with you? What is it that you do? She clamored. Tell me, tell me! Invariably, however, the poet would reply with, it's a secret. Does that mean you don't trust me? It's not that, but I don't know if it is a very respectable job. The dancer would only scoff to these replies, saying, in case you hadn't noticed, I am a street performer. I dance in public, hoping against hope. Some kindly men or women will give me some spare change. Well, the poet demurred. You have no reason to feel embarrassed, you can tell me, the dancer pressed. But your dancing is beautiful, whereas the poet bowed her head, closing her eyes. I have only ever used my talents for selfish purposes. What talents? I want to know. Aren't we friends? Well, The poet hid her face. Admitting that she was a poet was excruciating, as it so often is for those who wish to make a living through the written word. It is far too personal, yet at the same time the poet wanted the dancer to know. I write poems, I suppose. She admitted, her cheeks pale pink. To her relief, the dancer did not scorn her chosen career. Instead, she clapped her hands together, her face shining. Holmes, oh my, that really does suit you.
You think?
Yes, you seem like exactly the kind of person who would exist in some dusty library, poring over old books with a quill in your hand.
I'm not sure if I am flattered about this assessment or not,
said the poet. It's a compliment, said the dancer, giggling. But a poet,
I wonder.
What was she wondering exactly? The poet was curious, but at the same time, she was a little anxious. Even so, she still asked,
What are you wondering?
The dancer's eyes lit up. With a wide smile, she took hold of the poet's hands in her own. Her fingers were soft and warm. Have you written any poems about me? The poet backed away, though it did little good, given her fingers were still entwined.
The
poet stuttered.
You have?
Asked the dancer.
No!
Don't lie to me. My number not fan. I can tell, said the poet, waving. Said the poet. What? No? Error! That is not the poet. That is the dancer, not the poet, said the dancer, waving one finger in a reprimanding manner. If you have been profiting off my beauty, why don't you let me look? I want to see what you've been writing about me. But the poet could not talk. Could not. She opened and closed her mouth, but no voice came out. It was too embarrassing. Poems can be rather revealing, crafted by stripping back layers upon layers of the heart and arranging them prettily on a piece of paper. The poet did not want the dancer to see the true depths of her feelings. She would rather die. She refused. She had to.
I refuse.
Well, the dancer's expression, once so jubilant, fell.
If you don't trust me.
But that wasn't it! It wasn't that the poet did not trust the dancer. The poet did not trust herself. Though her poetry had never been more evocative than it was now, that only made the poet even more defensive of her works. Falling in love seemed to have had a positive effect on her poetry. Though the poet had published on a handful of poems before, they had met with little acclaim. They were too morose and melancholy, with no softer moments to break them up. A long, endless slog. If the girl's poems had been miserable, that was only to be expected. She herself had been miserable, and she had known few other emotions. A writer can create the most expansive of fantasy universes populated with any number of colorful characters, but they cannot come to life without emotion. Upon meeting the dancer, the poet's heart was suddenly sieged with any number of curious feelings she had never had before. Oh my god, can we fucking hurry this up? I'm getting bored! Getting bored of this! There was happiness, yes, and relief and pleasure, warmth, acceptance, belonging. I want a break! But there were other, darker emotions mixed in, anxiety, insecurity, jealousy, and a deeper, darker, bitterer loneliness than any she had ever experienced. It was with these emotions that the poet created her new works, and they were well received. They were raw and passionate, almost obscenely so, and people were enamored. During her life, the poet spun so many stories that attained acclaim and lofty accolades. But the one thing she wanted to say the most, she could not. She could not tell the truth. She could not tell the dancer she loved her. She could not even let the dancer read her poems. Time passed as it always does in the halcyon days the poet had spent with her beloved dwindled away like autumn leaves. The dancer told her the news one day when they were in the local tavern sipping at tankards of apple cider. The same apple cider. Oh, I hit my desk. The same apple cider they had been drinking together, the dancer giggling tipsily when they had shared their first and last kiss. A chaste kiss on the cheek, scented with sliced apples. The dancer hadn't been serious, or had she? The poet didn't know. She had never asked, and now it was too late. Finally!
I'm going to get married soon.
Oh, fuck. I thought that was gonna be it. At that moment, the poet's heart shattered. She had always known such a day would come where the dancer would be torn apart from her forever, but she had not wanted to accept it. It would hurt too much. Now that it had finally happened, however, she had no choice but to nod her head. She was that kind of person. "Oh, is that so? I'm happy for you," said the poet. The dancer looked at her, brushing a few strands of hair behind her ear, and said, "Are you sure?" Her eyes were large and imploring, pleading. "Are you really sure?" And the poet had never been surer. It was not all right, and she was not happy. Her heart had already broken, and its shards were embedded inside her ribs, her stomach, her liver, her lungs. Gross. The mere act of breathing hurt. Oh yes, you already said that before, but she had to try and smile. She didn't want to ruin the dancer's happiness. The dancer had played the role of the erstwhile lover for the poet so many times in the past. That was more happiness than a useless girl like her could hope for. I don't care. Now she would dance it for her husband. She's gonna be doing a little bit more for her husband. Let's just say that. And so it was, though it hurt more than anything ever had before. The poet was able to say with conviction, "I am sure." But surprisingly, it was the dancer who faltered. Her fingers trembled about the handle of her tankard, and her eyes began to swim with tears. Why was she crying? Happiness? It did not look like it. If I get married, you won't be able to be my number one not fan anymore," said the dancer. I won't? No. My fiancé does not approve of me being a dancer. He says he cannot bear other men to look at my legs or waist or hips or when I dance. But the chest is okay. The poet's voice faltered. He is only saying that because he loves you. But did she really believe that? "But I love dancing," the dancer exclaimed. "I love dancing more than anything, and I love it when you watch me." The dancer stared at the poet, imploring. Her lips trembled. So did her eyelashes, wet with unshed tears. "Please." But the poet did not know what she was pleading for. The poet's throat convulsed, and all she could say was, "Congratulations." Being a poet, it was almost funny she could not think of any words. Wasn't that her job? But words had forsaken her now. It was hard to say who that ill-placed, sensitive congratulations hurt more. The dancer's face twisted with more grief than she had borne when dancing the role of the dying swan. This was her final dance, reserved only for the poet, her best friend, her number one not fan, the heartbroken Waden. The poet hated herself for it. She hated herself more than she did already. Why hadn't she told the truth? Why had she never told the truth? She's claimed to care for the dancer's company, but everything she said to her had been a lie. But this was why the girl had wanted to become a poet ever since her childhood. She could not say the things she meant out loud. The truth only manifested itself when she held a pen, but writing of her affection would be useless. She had never let the dancer read her poems, and now she never would. And so, just like that, the dancer left the poet's life. Her absence cleaved an irreparable hole inside the poet's breast. It felt as though her heart, which had been lying dormant for years, had suddenly burst into being, only to collapse on itself. If only she had told the dancer how she really felt, instead of relying on a cold and unfeeling piece of paper. But it was too late now. The poet returned to her secluded library. Once it had seemed like a sanctuary, now it was a prison. With a trembling hand, she picked up her quill and dipped it in her ink pot. A thick drop of ink fell from the end of the quill and hit the clean, fresh sheet of parchment, its stain spreading outwards in a circle the size of a marble. The poet did not try to brush it away. There was no point. For the first time in her life, she could not think of anything to write. Finally, we're done with that horrible fucking shit. My fucking voice hurts. The last word died on Manette's lips, and the church was once more bathed in silence. You know what? I know it should have just been saved on the last thing I saved on, but I'm gonna oversave that because my voice hurts. My fucking voice hurts. I was not prepared to fucking read a fucking paragraph, but whatever. I'm gonna record, even though I know I shouldn't. Even though I know I should, I'm gonna have to backtrack for the other thing. But I'm gonna. I'm gonna. Okay, we're gonna. I'm just gonna. We're gonna break. 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 I need a fucking break because my fucking voice hurts. It hurts. Do you wish to leave? The nameless girl bites her lower lip. She looks more anxious than you have ever seen her before. She's been trying so hard to remain strong, but everybody has a limit. Seems that she is approaching hers. You can go if you must. I cannot keep you here. I do not want to keep you here. I do not want you to hate me, Bud. Her eyes are misty and corporeal like will-o-wisps. Please come back as soon as you can. I'm begging you. And you can tell she really means it. Alright, I'll come back as soon as possible, but holy fucking shit. My fucking throat is dead. I'm like, I know my voice is dead, but I'm gonna scream anyways. So anyways, that being said, if you guys enjoyed this episode of Once on a Windswept Night, I would like to see more of this game, then leave a like down below, leave a comment down below, share with your friends, subscribe if you haven't, ring that notification bell, and remember, die safely. Bye-bye!